My sister dreamed of being a fairy tale heroine, guarded by loyal knights. The day I was born, she wished for a baby brother to protect her. My parents didn't have the heart to crush her fantasy, so they changed my birth certificate listing me as male. I kept my hair short, followed her like a shadow, carried her backpack and fought her battles. Yet I could never shake the suffocating injustice. At 17, I secretly created a second social media account. My profile was a girl's picture. My bio feminine. My feed filled with delicate princess dresses. Boy added me and we talked for 6 months. One afternoon, he sent a voice note chuckling softly. I found you. Later that day, the most popular guy in school confessed his love to my sister. As I was about to explain, glowing text began scrolling across my vision. Like live stream comments. What is this side character thinking? Does he believe confessing now will change anything? How could the future wealthiest tycoon of baby ever fall for a guy? It's laughable. If he discovers he's been chatting with a boy, he'll be furious about the deception. But I wasn't a boy. I was Dakin. And all I wanted was to wear a dress. Just once. My fingers hovered over the screen. In the end, I never sent that message. Closing my phone, I listened to my classmates gossiping excitedly around me. Oh my God, was that Miguel? He is so insanely handsome. I walked past him earlier and caught a glimpse. He looks so cool and detached. I can't believe he confessed to Serena. At Bayview High, rumors about Miguel always traveled the fastest. Did you guys know Miguel has been into Serena for a long time? My cousin is his roommate. He said Miguel is always staring at his phone, smiling so softly. The girl he likes has a really sweet voice. Loves to daydream and her social media is full of kittens. And all kinds of princess dresses. I looked out the window below the academic building. Serena was wearing a designer Miu Miu dress. Her long, wavy hair fell beautifully over her shoulders. She threw herself into Miguel's arms. Even the way she blushed was breathtakingly beautiful. I thought to myself, they were right. Serena truly looked like a princess. My desk mate, Wyatt, leaned over the windowsill, watching my sister, before turning back to look at me with a serious face. Dakin, you and your sister don't look alike at all. What do you mean? Wyatt thought for a moment before offering an analogy. Your sister is like a graceful swan. You look like her servant. Short, scrawny. And your hair is full of split ends. Anger flared in my chest. I buried my face in my arms on the desk, ignoring him. Wyatt nudged my shoulder, his voice turning teasing. Come on, Dakin. Don't be mad. I'll buy you a drink just as I was about to look up, he added, here. This one's for you. And can you help me deliver the other one to your sister? My drink was a cheap dollar store iced tea. One for my sister was a fancy, expensive specialty berry latte. I buried my head deeper into the desk. I am not going. My sister doesn't like you anyway. She won't accept it. Ego bruised. He slammed his hand on the desk, his face flushing with embarrassment. Guys, we don't need to drink fancy things. Why are you acting so high and mighty, Dakin? I think you are just jealous of your sister. With that, he stomped off. The entire classroom turned to look at me. I buried my face in my math worksheet, pretending I didn't care. But my fingers gripped the hem of my shirt so tightly that my palms ached. I didn't say another word to Wyatt that day. Once the school ended and everyone had left, I sat in the empty classroom and cried. I suddenly remembered a time long ago, when I had secretly tried on one of my sister's hair clips. My mother had screamed at me, calling me a thief. Heartbroken, I had posted a picture of the clip online. A kind stranger added me, is this the one? Don't worry about the money. I'll send it to you. Later. He messaged me. So you like pink? You like pink princess dresses, huh? Quite the girly heart. Then he added. But suits you. I knew that every time I posted on my feed, he was always the first to leave a like. Miguel had mistaken my sister for me. I didn't blame him. After all, I was the one who was like a thief in the night. Had secretly envied and peeked into my sister's perfect life. After that day, I logged out of the secret account and never opened it again. During breakfast, my mother gave me her usual reminder. Your sister is having bad cramps today. As her brother, you need to take good care of her. I chewed slowly on my toast. I will. Serena was 2 years older than me. A senior, our classrooms were far apart. I carefully filled a thermos with warm chamomile tea and stirred in some honey. The moment the bell rang, I ran over to her building. By the time I arrived, sweating and out of breath, my sister had just gone to the restroom. I set the warm tea on her desk. After a moment's thought, I slipped a few chocolates next to it. Suddenly, a boy with dyed red hair blocked my path. raised an eyebrow and leaned against the desk. He looked me up and down with a sneer. What class are you in? Don't you know Serena has a boyfriend? I didn't know this guy and I didn't want to start any trouble. But before I could even open my mouth to explain, he snatched the thermos and threw it to the ground, splashing the tea everywhere. I've been watching you for a while now. Every single day you carry Serena's bag, run errands and buy her drinks, trying so hard to kiss up to her. Do you really think you are on her level? He pinned me against the wall, his tone dangerously casual. He was too close. Terrified that he was about to punch me, I squeezed my eyes shut. That is enough, Asher. Don't push it. A cool, detached voice sounded from nearby. Miguel took off his headphones. Glancing at me, he said calmly, "Take your chocolates back, kid. She doesn't need them. And from now on, stay away from Serena." His voice was beautiful. His words were polite, yet firm. Glowing comments flashed across my mind. LMAO, the side character is such a clown. The male lead didn't even recognize him. He thinks Dakin is a rival and is getting jealous. Dakin needs to know his place. Stop making a fool of yourself. Even if the male lead found out the truth, he would only feel disgusted, not fall for you. Just then, Serena hurried back. Seeing the tense standoff, she let out a soft laugh. "Oh. My gosh. What are you guys doing? Are you about to fight?" He naturally wrapped her arm around Miguel's. Then she pointed at me. "This is my brother. My real brother." Miguel froze. "Your brother makes you tea and walks you to school every day?" Serena blinked innocently. "Yeah. He is like my personal knight. A younger brother is supposed to protect his sister for the rest of his life, right?" A long silence followed. Realizing he had made a mistake, Gal extended his hand to me and said sincerely, "I am sorry." I forced a tight smile, but my lips felt completely numb. Back when we chatted online, he used to tease me, making my face flush. "What are you so afraid of? Am I going to eat you when we finally meet?" But I never expected our actual meeting to be like this. And all he had to say to me was a cold, polite apology. Perhaps out of guilt for the misunderstanding. Miguel had someone deliver some things to me a few days later. A few days later, it was a stack of thick, neatly organized study guides and hard-to-find practice exams. Asher dropped the materials onto my desk with a lazy shrug. "Miguel put these together. He is always top of the class. This note should help you with the upcoming midterms." Seeing my hesitation, Asher slung an arm around my shoulder. "Come on, don't hold a grudge. We were out of line the other day. Just don't go bad-mouthing us to your sister." I thought to myself. "Ah. So he likes my sister too." I nodded and accepted the books. As I flipped through the practice exams, a beautifully packaged box of imported chocolates fell out. I blinked in surprise. Asher was already walking away. He waved a hand over his shoulder. "Those are from me. Eat up. You need to grow taller." During the midterm exams, for some reason, every question that was similar to the ones in that practice book was a breeze. I didn't lose a single point. Gradually, the tension between us began to thaw. Whenever I ran into Miguel at school, we would exchange a polite nod. Sometimes while memorizing vocabulary in the hallway, I would look down and see Miguel squat near the academic building, feeding a small colony of stray ginger cats. The summer breeze blew softly, rustling his hair. He would smile, his lips curving into a gentle line as if thinking of someone special. But in the next second, a bright, cheerful figure would throw her arms around him. "So this is where you were hiding?" Serena glanced down at the cats, wrinkling her nose. Why do you like these basic ginger cats?" "Just like my brother does." "I thought you'd prefer something cooler. Like a Maine Coon." Miguel went rigid. "Your brother likes these cats?" "Yeah." "Why?" Miguel stood up, brushing off his jeans. "Nothing. Let's go. I want to see you practice ballet." As they walked away, a little ginger cat rubbed against my ankle, meowing softly. I broke off a piece of a turkey jerky strip and fed it to the kitten. After that day, I rarely went to that hallway to study. Miguel's devotion to Serena was legendary throughout the school. On her birthday, he gifted her a diamond necklace worth 7 figures. The class decided to celebrate at an upscale karaoke lounge. And during a game of truth or dare, Serena lost several rounds in a row. Miguel drank every single penalty shot for her. I went to the restroom and when I came out, I saw him leaning heavily against the sink. He looked incredibly pale, as if he had just thrown up. After a brief hesitation, I stepped forward to support him. "If you are not feeling well, you should tell my sister." The moment our fingers brushed, Miguel stiffened, his handsome brow furrowed. He subtly but firmly pulled his arm back, keeping my touch. Why is it you? The floating comment sneered. The side character is so pathetic. Trying to orchestrate a run-in to get close to the male lead. He tried the same thing with the ginger cats last time. What is the point of all this effort? Even if the male lead suspects something, he'll just pretend he doesn't know. I withdrew my hand, just passing by. Even after I had walked far down the corridor, I could still feel his dark, heavy gaze lingering on my back. I left the party early that night. Around 9. A light drizzle began to fall, and my father looked out the window with a worried frown. Dakin, go pick up your sister and bring her home. I kept my eyes glued to my textbook. Woman is already bringing her home. My mother frowned, her voice sharp with disapproval. I don't trust other boys walking her home in the dark. Dakin, since when did you become so selfish? Seeing the rising tension, my father put his laptop aside and quickly tried to soothe her. I silently put on my raincoat, grabbed an extra umbrella and walked out into the damp night. Perhaps Serena had stayed out too late. By a stroke of terrible luck, we were cornered by a group of local street thugs in a narrow, dark alley. Dakin, what do we do? I am scared. Serena whimpered, her voice tiny and trembling. I didn't tell her that I was terrified, too. But I dropped my backpack anyway. Serena, when things get messy, run toward the main road. Don't look back. It was used to be this way. Wasn't it? When I was a child and a plate was broken, I was the one who took the blame. Every teddy bear my parents bought was handed to her. When there was a massive spider in her wardrobe, she would scream and call my name. And I would swallow my own terror to kill it for her. From the moment I could understand words, the phrase my parents repeated most was, "You must promise to protect your sister. You are the man of the house. Serena has a congenital heart condition. She is so fragile. You are healthy and strong. So you have to look out for her your entire life. Our Dickens is so smart. Surely you can understand and help your parents." I had heard those words so many times that they had become second nature. So when the wooden planks and metal pipes swung toward us, I didn't hesitate. I shielded her with my body. When they grabbed my hair, I kicked them in the stomach. Eventually grew loud enough to draw the attention of nearby neighbors, who called the police, forcing the thugs to scatter. Wiping the blood dripping from my forehead, I reached out to pull my sister up. Some kind bystanders helped us to the hospital, and Miguel arrived shortly after receiving the news. He burst into the room, and his eyes immediately locked onto the scrape on Serena's knee. He turned to me, his voice tight with anger. "Dakin, why couldn't you have been more careful? She is hurt. Is this how you protect your sister?" His anxiety made his aura incredibly cold and oppressive. Serena sobbed, shaking her head to defend me. But she was crying too hard to speak. "Hey, Miguel. Calm down." Asher stepped in, patting his shoulder. "Duncan is hurt, too. Look at his forehead. It is still bleeding. You can't blame him for this." Only then did Miguel notice the white bandage wrapped around my forehead. His voice caught in his throat. He fell silent, turned on his heel and walked out to settle the hospital bill. Knowing his friend was in a terrible mood, Asher followed to comfort him. From a distance, Miguel's cold, dismissive words drifted back to my ears. "He is a guy. Isn't this exactly what he is supposed to do? What does he have to feel bad about? Honestly, I don't feel safe leaving Serena in his hands." I lowered my head, staring at the tips of my shoes, and kicked a small pebble. I didn't say a single word. When Miguel dropped my sister off at our apartment building, he called out to me. "The police found your phone." The screen wasn't locked. I mumbled a quick thank you and took it from him. Just as I turned to head upstairs, the phone in my hand began to vibrate. I froze, looking down at the screen. Standing under the dim street lamp, Al slowly lowered his own phone from his ear. "It really was you." We stared at each other through the hazy drizzle. There was no sudden joy of discovery, no regret for the misunderstanding. His face was as flat and cold as still water. As he slid a card toward me. "Dakin, let's just pretend this never happened, okay? I don't want anyone else to know. Honestly, it is pretty disgusting." The freezing rain beat down on my face. It was so humiliating, so painful that it made me want to weep. With all the strength left in my body, I snapped the card in half, threw the pieces at his chest and ran upstairs. The plastic card didn't snap easily. It was thick, the kind of high-grade, matte finish membership card issued only to the heirs of conglomerate families. But under the desperate, shaking leverage of my thumbs, it yielded with a sharp, ugly crack. I didn't look back to see where the pieces landed. The rain was coming down, harder now, cold and heavy, washing the metallic tang of blood from my lip down. into the collar of my oversized, waterlogged jacket. Each step up the concrete stairs of our apartment building felt like lifting lead. Behind me, the street lamp cast Miguel's shadow long and thin across the asphalt. I knew he was still standing there, his phone a glowing square in his hand, his perfect, aristocratic face probably frozen in that expression of mild, antiseptic distaste. Honestly, it is pretty disgusting. The words didn't just hurt, they settled deep into my bones, a cold gray ash that extinguished the very last ember of the boy I had tried so hard to pretend to be. When I pushed the door to our apartment open, the warmth of the heater hit me like a physical blow, thick with the scent of roasted chicken and lavender-scented floor cleaner. My mother was standing by the kitchen island, pouring a cup of hot chamomile tea. "Serena?" She called out instantly, her voice tight with an anxiety that never seemed to apply to anyone else. "Is she back? Did Miguel bring her?" "She's downstairs," I said. My voice was hoarse, a quiet, gravelly sound that sounded foreign even to me. "Miguel's car is there." My mother didn't look at the bandage on my forehead, which was already graying and peeling at the edges from the dampness. She didn't notice the way my left arm hung slightly lower than my right, a dull, throbbing ache radiating from where a wooden plank had caught my shoulder in the alley. She simply let out a long, shuddering sigh of relief, setting the tea down. "Thank God," she whispered, smoothing her apron. With her heart, if she had been caught in that rain any longer. "Dakin, did you make sure she had the umbrella? I told you to take the large one." "She didn't get wet," I said, my fingers gripping the strap of my wet backpack. "Good. You're a good brother, Dakin. Your father and I always knew we could count on you." She finally looked up, her eyes skimming over me with the superficial interest one might show to a familiar piece of furniture. "Go wash up. You look like a mess. And don't leave your wet clothes on the bathroom floor, it makes the tiles moldy." I stood in the narrow hallway, the silence of the apartment settling around me like dust. Look at him standing there like a wet dog. Is the side character going to throw a tantrum now? Honestly, the mother is right. Serena is the main character, she has a heart condition. He's just a healthy extra. Why is he acting so aggrieved? The male lead's reaction was totally justified. If a guy catfished me for 6 months, I'd throw more than just a card at him. The glowing white text scrolled lazily across my vision, hovering just below the ceiling before fading into the cream-colored paint. I didn't blink. I didn't try to swat them away anymore. For months, these floating words had been my constant, uninvited spectators, a digital audience to my miserable, script-bound life. They saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone, a clumsy plot device designed to make the princess look brighter and the male lead look more protective. I walked into my bedroom, a small, square room that had once been a walk-in closet before my parents put a twin bed and a desk in it to give Serena a larger vanity space. I locked the door. It was the only lock in the house I was allowed to use. I didn't turn on the light. In the dim grayness filtering through the blinds, I reached under my bed, pulling out a battered cardboard shoebox hidden behind a stack of old textbooks. Inside, beneath a layer of old sketchbooks, lay a single, crumpled piece of pink ribbon, the one my mother had screamed at me for taking from Serena's drawer when I was 9. Beside it was a small, cheap bottle of peach-scented hand cream I had bought with my lunch money 3 years ago, its label half peeled. I took off my wet shirt, my chest flat under the binding vest I had worn since I was 12. My parents had told me it was for my posture, but we all knew what it was really for. It was to flatten the soft curves that began to form when I turned 13, to ensure that Serena's little brother stayed the scrawny, shadow-like boy her fantasy required. I caught sight of myself in the small vanity mirror hanging on the back of the door. The short, jagged haircut, which I cut myself with kitchen scissors because my mother refused to let me grow it past my ears, was plastered to my skull. My skin was pale, my eyes sunken and dark. I looked like a ghost. A ghost that had spent 17 years trying to inhabit a body that didn't belong to it. With trembling, clumsy fingers, I reached behind my back and unhooked the binding vest. As it fell to the floor, my chest rose with a deep, shuddering breath. It was the first time in years I had breathed without the tight, restrictive pressure of canvas against my ribs. It felt cold. It felt terrifying. I sat on the edge of my bed, the rain continuing to beat a steady, rhythmic tattoo against the glass, and for the first time in my life, I didn't cry. The tears had dried up somewhere in that wet alleyway, replaced by a strange, hollow space that felt remarkably like freedom. The next morning, the sun didn't rise, the sky simply transitioned from pitch Black to a bruised, heavy purple. I didn't set my alarm, but my internal clock, trained by years of domestic routine, woke me at exactly 5:30 a.m. Usually, this was when I would go to the kitchen, quiet as a mouse, to prepare the hot ginger tea Serena needed to soothe her morning nausea, pack her lunch with her dietary restrictions in mind, and polish her school loafers. Instead, I stayed in bed. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, watching the occasional stray comment drift across the plaster. Is he still asleep? The female lead is going to be late for her morning ballet prep. What is this lazy extra doing? Wow, he's actually throwing a strike because of yesterday? How petty. At 6:30 a.m., the first sharp knock came on my door. Dakin, my mother's voice was hurried, tinged with that familiar edge of irritation. Dakin, get up. Serena's stomach is upset again. Where is her tea? And her bag isn't packed. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Dakin. The doorknob rattled violently, but the brass lock held. Are you deaf? Your father has an early meeting, and I have to take Serena to the clinic before school. Open this door. I pulled the blanket up to my chin. I'm not feeling well, I said, my voice flat and dead. I'm staying in bed. A heavy silence fell over the hallway. It was a silence of pure, unadulterated shock. In 17 years, Dakin had never been not feeling well. Dakin was the strong one. Dakin was the shield. Dakin was the one whose health was a given, an unshakable foundation upon which Serena's fragile glass castle was built. What do you mean you're not feeling well? My mother's voice lost its warmth, turning sharp and accusatory. You just have a scrape on your head. Don't be so dramatic. Your sister has a weak heart, Dakin. She was terrified yesterday. The least you can do is help her out this morning instead of throwing a tantrum. Because you got a little bruise. I'm not coming out, I repeated, closing my eyes. The doorknob rattled once more, hard enough to shake the cheap wood of the frame. We'll talk about this tonight, she hissed through the crack. Your father is going to hear about this. I heard her sharp, hurried footsteps retreat down the hall. A few minutes later, the front door slammed shut. The apartment was finally, beautifully quiet. I got out of bed at 8 a.m. For the first time in my life, I didn't put on the binding vest. I wore a loose, oversized gray hoodie that swallowed my frame, and instead of the stiff, straight-cut boys' school trousers, I put on an old pair of soft black sweatpants. When I walked into the kitchen, the remnants of their hurried departure were everywhere. A half-eaten piece of toast covered in expensive imported marmalade sat on Serena's plate. An empty mug of coffee was left on the counter. The sink was full of dishes. Normally, I would have cleaned it all before leaving for school, terrified of my mother's scolding when she returned. Today, I walked right past it. I poured myself a glass of tap water, drank it slowly, and left the apartment. The walk to Bayview High was long without the bus. Usually, I rode the bus with Serena, carrying both her heavy designer leather satchel and my own canvas backpack, standing so she could have a seat. Today, walking alone under the gray sky, my shoulders felt light. The cool morning air circulated beneath my oversized hoodie, a sensation so novel it made my breath hitch. When I entered the school gates, the bell for the second period was already ringing. The hallways were mostly empty, save for a few latecomers rushing to their classrooms. As I walked toward the academic building, I saw a familiar sleek black sedan parked near the faculty lot. Miguel's driver was waiting by the door. I didn't look at it. I kept my head down, but as I passed the main lobby, a tall figure stepped out from the shadow of the trophy case, blocking my path. It was Miguel. He had his school blazer slung over one shoulder, his white shirt pristine, not a single hair out of place. He looked every bit the future wealthiest tycoon. The floating comments always raved about, cool, distant, and utterly out of reach for someone like me. He looked at me, his dark eyes narrowing slightly as they swept over my oversized hoodie and the white bandage on my forehead, which was now gray and peeling at the edges. You're late, he said, his voice dropping into that quiet, commanding register that always made the girls in our class whisper. I know, I said, trying to walk past him. He stepped to the side, blocking me again. He reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a small, white envelope. I could see the outline of a thick stack of bills inside. Take this, he said, his tone perfectly even, as if he were discussing a business transaction. For your medical bills. And for the phone. I looked at the envelope, then up at his face. His expression was blank, but there was a faint, almost imperceptible twitch in his jaw. He was uncomfortable. The golden boy of Bayview High, the perfect male lead, didn't like having dirty laundry. He didn't like the fact that the scrawny, scruffy brother of his girlfriend was the same person who had spent 6 months listening to his deepest, most vulnerable thoughts late at night. I don't want your money, Miguel, I said. Don't be stubborn, Dakin, he said, his voice hardening slightly. I know your family situation. Your sister's medical treatments aren't cheap. This is more than enough to cover your clinic visit and a new phone. Just take it and let's keep things quiet. For Serena's sake. For Serena's sake. It was always for her sake. I already told you, I said, looking him dead in the eye. For the first time, I didn't feel the suffocating weight of my own insignificance. I just felt a profound, exhausting pity for him. I don't want it. And you don't have to worry. I deleted the account. I don't exist to you, and you don't exist to me. I walked around him. This time, he didn't try to stop me. But as I stepped onto the stairs, the floating comments erupted into a frenzy of bright, agitated white light. Whoa, did the extra just reject money from the male lead? Is he trying to play hard to get? That's so cringe. Look at Miguel's face, he looks so angry. Dakin is really pushing his luck. Wait, why isn't he wearing his school uniform properly? What's with that baggy hoodie? I ignored them. I climbed the stairs, one step at a time, leaving the golden boy and his pristine, wealthy world behind in the lobby. In the weeks that followed, the quiet rebellion I had started began to split the foundations of our home like weeds growing through concrete. At first, my parents tried to storm my room, demanding explanations, calling me ungrateful, selfish, and cruel. My mother wept, pointing at Serena's pale face, claiming that my sudden attitude was causing her sister's heart rate to spike. Look at her, Dakin, she screamed one evening, throwing a handful of dirty dishes into the sink. She's trembling. She had to skip her ballet practice today because she was too stressed. All because you can't be bothered to walk her to her class anymore. What is wrong with you? Did those thugs hit you in the head too hard? I sat at the kitchen table, a book open in front of me, my face expressionless. If she can't walk to class, she should see a doctor, I said quietly. I am not a doctor. I am her sister. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Sister. The kitchen went so quiet you could hear the hum of the old refrigerator. My mother's hand froze midair, a sponge dripping soapy water onto the linoleum. My father, who had been reading the newspaper, slowly lowered the pages, his brow furrowing into a deep, dark line. Serena, who had been lounging on the sofa with her iPad, looked up, her beautiful, wide eyes blinking in utter confusion. What did you just say? My mother whispered, her voice dropping into a register that was dangerously low. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck, but I didn't back down. I looked up from my book, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. But my voice remained steady. I said, I am not her brother, I said, each word distinct, sharp as glass. I am a girl. You changed my birth certificate, but you couldn't change my body. I'm done pretending. My father stood up so fast his chair scraped violently against the floor. Dakin. Silence, he roared, his face flushing a dark, angry purple. Have you lost your mind? Who do you think you are talking to? We did what we had to do to keep this family together. To keep your sister happy. And what about me? I asked, my voice rising, breaking through the years of suffocating silence. Did you ever think about what I wanted? I wanted to grow my hair. I wanted to wear a dress. I wanted to go to school without having to hide my own body every single day. I am 17 years old, and I don't even know what I look like because I've spent my entire life looking like her shadow. You ungrateful little brat. My mother stepped forward, her hand flying out to strike my face. I didn't flinch. I didn't close my eyes. But the blow never landed. A hand caught her wrist midair. I looked up, stunned. It wasn't my father. It was Asher. The red-haired boy was standing by our open front door, his leather jacket damp from the light mist outside. He had a box of high-end bakery pastries in his hand, probably a gift for Serena, as he had been visiting our apartment more and more lately under the guise of checking on her. He looked at my mother, his face unusually grim, his jaw set. Mrs. Lynn, Asher said, his voice surprisingly mature, lacking his usual arrogant, lazy drawl. I think that's enough. My mother froze, her face turning from red to a pale, embarrassed white. She quickly pulled her wrist back, smoothing her apron with trembling fingers. Asher, oh, sweetie, you're here. We were just having a family discussion. Dakin has been very rebellious lately, and I heard, Asher said. He didn't look at Serena, who was now sitting up on the sofa, looking at him with wide, tearful eyes, expecting him to come comfort her. Instead, Asher's eyes locked onto me. He looked at my face, my bare neck, and the way my oversized hoodie slumped over my shoulders, no longer hidden by the tight binding vest. He looked at my short, messy hair, and then down at the small, trembling hands clutched in my lap. There was no disgust in his eyes. There was only a deep, quiet realization. Dakin, he said softly. Are you okay? I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat was too large, too heavy. I just nodded. Once, my eyes burning with the first real tears I had felt in weeks. Oh my God, the secondary male lead is here. Wait, did Asher just stop the mother from hitting him? Why is Asher looking at Dakin like that? Is the script glitching? Look at the comments. The plot is going off track. The floating text was flashing a violent, warning red now, the words tumbling over each other in a chaotic, disorganized mess. This isn't supposed to happen. Dakin is just an extra. Why is Asher defending him? No, wait, did Dakin just say she's a girl? Is the birth certificate forged? What the hell is this twist? Asher walked past my parents, ignoring their tense, hostile stares, and stood right in front of my chair. He set the bakery box on the table and reached out, his hand hovering over my shoulder for a second before gently resting on my uninjured arm. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get out of here. Asher. Serena finally spoke, her voice high and trembling with indignation. What are you doing? He's my brother. He's supposed to stay here and... He's not your brother, Serena, Asher said, not even turning his head to look at her. And he's not your servant either. He looked back down at me, a faint, lopsided smile touching his lips, the first genuine smile I had ever seen from him. You want to wear a dress, right? Let's go buy one. The boutique Asher took me to wasn't one of the flashy, high-end designer stores Serena frequented in the city center. It was a quiet, narrow shop tucked away in a cobblestone alley behind the old district, its windows filled with soft linen skirts, vintage cardigans, and delicate, hand-woven lace. I stood in the center of the shop, my arms clutched tightly against my chest, feeling incredibly out of place in my baggy sweatpants and oversized hoodie. The scent of lavender and old paper filled the air, a warm, comforting smell that made my knees feel weak. Asher stood by the entrance, his hands shoved deep into his leather jacket pockets, leaning against a wooden pillar. He looked completely relaxed, though. His eyes followed my every move with a quiet, protective intensity. Go on, he said, nodding toward a rack of dresses in the corner. Pick something. I don't have any money, I whispered, my face burning with embarrassment. My parents, they have all my documents. I don't even have an ID that says who I really am. Don't worry about the money, Asher said, his voice dropping into that familiar, lazy shrug, but his eyes were serious. I've got it. Just find something you like. Something that feels like you. My fingers trembled as I approached the rack. For 17 years, I had watched Serena wear beautiful things, silk ribbons, velvet headbands, tulle skirts that billowed like clouds. I had watched from the shadows, a scruffy, scrawny boy whose only purpose was to carry her shopping bags and keep her clean. My hand stopped on a simple, off-white cotton dress. It had a square neckline, long, slightly puffed sleeves, and a delicate hem of embroidered peach blossoms along the skirt. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't Meow. But it was beautiful. That one, Asher said from behind me. Try it on. I took the dress into the small wooden changing room. The air inside was cool. And the mirror on the wall was clean, reflecting my tired, bruised face. With shaking hands, I took off my heavy gray hoodie. I stepped out of my sweatpants. When I slipped the cotton dress over my head, the fabric felt cool and light against my skin, like a gentle, healing balm. I reached behind my back, my fingers clumsy as I zipped it up. When I finally turned to face the mirror, I stopped breathing. The girl looking back at me wasn't the scruffy, scrawny Dakin who ran errands and took the blame for broken plates. Her shoulders were small and delicate. Her neck was long, the pale skin showing the faint, blue line of her collarbone. The dress fit her perfectly, hugging her waist before falling in soft, graceful folds around her knees. Her short, dark hair, though still jaggedly cut, framed her face in a way that made her eyes look incredibly large and bright, not dark and sunken, but a deep, luminous amber. I reached up, my fingertips touching my own cheek. For the first time in my life, I saw myself. Oh. Wait. Is that Dakin? She's actually really beautiful. The floating comments are glitching so hard right now. This can't be the same. Extra. Why does she look so much like the girl from the profile picture? The one Miguel was obsessed with? Oh my god, I asked the girl. The voice notes, the sweet voice, the ginger cats, it was her all along. The white text was no longer mocking. It was slow, hesitant, almost reverent. Drifting across the mirror's surface like falling leaves. I pushed the wooden door of the changing room open and stepped out. Asher was still leaning against the pillar, scrolling through his phone. When he heard the door click, he looked up. His phone slipped from his fingers, landing with a soft thud on the rug. He didn't speak. His eyes widened, his breath catching in his throat as he stared at me. The arrogant, red-haired boy who usually had a sneer for everyone looked completely, utterly speechless. Does it look weird? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, my fingers twisting the fabric of the skirt in sudden panic. My hair is too short, and my shoulders. No, Asher interrupted, his voice hoarse. He stepped forward, his eyes never leaving my face. He stopped just a foot away, his hand reaching out instinctively before he pulled it back, as if afraid he might tear the delicate cotton. No, Dakin. You look like yourself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box, the one he had carried with him when he came to our apartment. He opened it, revealing a simple, silver hair clip shaped like a tiny, blooming peach blossom. I saw this in a shop window last week, he said, his face flushing a faint, embarrassed pink under his dyed red hair. I didn't know why I bought it then. I thought, maybe I'd give it to Serena. But now I know. It wasn't for her. He stepped closer, his fingers gentle as he parted my short, messy fringe and slid the silver clip into my hair, securing a strand behind my ear. It was always for you, he whispered. The storm didn't stay contained in our small apartment. By the next Monday, the rumors at Bayview High had reached a fever pitch. But this time, they weren't about Miguel's grand romantic gestures or Serena's perfect ballet recitals. They were about me. I walked through the school gates wearing the girl's uniform, the dark blue pleated skirt and the white collared shirt with the red tie. I had refused to wear the boys' trousers anymore. My hair was still short, but the silver peach blossom clip glinted in the morning sun, and my shoulders were straight, no longer hidden under the suffocating layers of baggy hoodies. The silence that followed me through the hallway was absolute. Classmates who had once ignored me or used me to deliver messages to my sister stared with wide, uncomprehending eyes. Wyatt, my former desk mate, froze near his locker, a half-empty can of soda slipping from his hand and splashing onto the floor. Dakin, he stammered, his face turning an absurd shade of crimson. You're a... I didn't answer him. I walked past him, my loafers clicking softly against the linoleum. But the real confrontation happened during the lunch break. I was sitting by the old oak tree in the courtyard, feeding a small ginger cat with a few pieces of dried fish Asher had bought for me. The little cat purred loudly, rubbing its soft cheek against my knee, completely unbothered by the dramatic shift in my appearance. Dakin. The voice was cold, sharp, and instantly recognizable. I looked up. Miguel was standing a few feet away, his face pale, his eyes dark, with a turbulent mix of anger, confusion, and something that looked dangerously like panic. Behind him, Serena was clinging to his arm, her face red from crying, her eyes filled with a vicious, venomous hatred I had never seen in her before. What is the meaning of this? Miguel demanded, his fingers clenching into fists at his sides. What are you wearing? Why are you doing this to your sister? I'm not doing anything to her, Miguel, I said, my voice calm, my hand continuing to stroke the little cat's back. I'm just wearing my own clothes. You're embarrassing her. Serena shrieked, her voice cracking with a high, hysterical edge. Everyone is talking about us. They're saying my parents forged your birth certificate. They're saying I treated you like a servant. You're ruining my life, Dakin. How could you be so selfish? After everything we did for you. What did you do for me, Serena? I asked, standing up slowly. The dress, the school skirt, swirled around my knees. I looked at her, this beautiful, fragile girl who had spent her entire life taking everything I had to offer and demanding more. You took my childhood, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the quiet courtyard, where dozens of students had gathered to watch. You took my identity. You let our parents lock me in a closet and treat me like a dog so you could play your little princess fantasy. And when I got beaten up protecting you, your boyfriend called me disgusting and threw money at my face. I looked at Miguel. The golden boy of Bayview High looked as if he had been struck. The color had completely drained from his face, his eyes darting from my face to the silver peach blossom clip in my hair, and then down to the small ginger cat rubbing against my ankles. The girl. Miguel whispered, his voice trembling, a sound so weak and broken I barely recognized it. The girl on the chat, the one who loved pink dresses, who fed the ginger cats, who had that sweet, quiet voice. He took a step forward, his hand reaching out blindly. It was you. It was always you. Miguel? Serena pulled on his arm, her face twisting in sudden terror. What are you talking about? I'm the girl you love. I'm your princess. He's just a freak. He's a boy who wants to be a girl. Shut up, Serena, Miguel said. The words were quiet, but they carried a terrifying, freezing weight. Serena froze, her mouth hanging open, her eyes wide with shock. She had never, in her entire life, heard Miguel speak to her with anything other than absolute devotion. Miguel didn't look at her. He couldn't take his eyes off me. Dakin. He took another step, his face filled with an agonizing, desperate regret. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. When I called you, when I said those things. I thought you were catfishing me. I thought you were trying to ruin my relationship with Serena. I was angry, I was stupid, please, Dakin. The 6 months we spent talking, those were the happiest days of my life. I was talking to you. Oh my God, the male lead is realizing the truth. He's begging. The aloof, wealthy tycoon is actually begging. But it's too late, isn't it? He was so cruel to her. Look at his face, he's completely shattered. This is so satisfying. The floating comments were cascading down like a waterfall of silver light, glowing so brightly they almost blinded me. But for the first time, I didn't care what they said. They were no longer my script. They were just empty words in the air. You were talking to a fantasy, Miguel, I said softly. You loved the idea of a perfect, delicate girl who lived in a dream. But when you met the real me, the scruffy, bruised person who actually lived that nightmare, you couldn't stand the sight of me. You didn't love me. You loved a mirror that reflected your own savior complex. No. Dakin, please, Miguel reached out, his fingers inches from my sleeve. A tall, broad figure stepped between us. Asher slung his arm lazily over my shoulder, his red hair bright in the sunlight, his eyes cold as ice as he looked down at his best friend. She said no, Miguel, Asher said, his voice flat, completely devoid of his usual warmth. And if you touch her, I don't care if your family owns half the city. I'll make sure you regret it. Miguel stared at Asher, his jaw trembling, his eyes filled with a dark, hollow despair. He looked at me one last time, at the silver peach blossom clip, the light cotton of my skirt, and the quiet, unshakable peace in my eyes. He knew. He knew he had lost the only real thing he had ever found. With a broken, choked sound, Miguel turned on his heel and walked away, his stride hurried, almost running, leaving Serena standing alone in the center of the courtyard. Serena looked around at the whispering crowd, her face pale, her hands shaking. Miguel? Miguel, wait for me, she screamed, but he didn't look back. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, pathetic fury. You took him from me. You took everything from me. No, Serena, I said, turning my back on her and walking toward the school building with Asher by my side. I didn't take anything. I just took my own life back. The legal process to correct my birth certificate was long and exhausting, but with Asher's family providing the necessary legal counsel, my parents had no choice but to sign the papers. They couldn't afford the public scandal of a forged identity and child neglect, especially with Miguel's family quietly pulling their investments from my father's company out of sheer, guilt-ridden spite. Within a month, I was no longer Dakin Lin, the little brother. My legal name was changed to Dahlia Lin. I didn't stay in that small, suffocating apartment. Asher's aunt, a quiet, gentle woman who ran a small flower shop in the old district, offered me a room in her townhouse above the shop. In exchange, I helped her tend the peach trees and lavender in the greenhouse after school. It was a quiet, simple life, far removed from the high society drama of Bayview High. A year later, on a warm summer afternoon, I stood in the greenhouse, trimming the dead leaves from a potted peach blossom tree. I was wearing a simple, soft pink linen dress, one I had bought with my own money, earned from working at the flower shop. My hair had grown out, falling in soft, dark waves around my shoulders, held back by the silver peach blossom clip Asher had given me. The glass ceiling of the greenhouse was warm, the sunlight filtering through in long, dusty golden shafts. The little ginger cat, whom I had named Peach, was napping on a wooden bench. Nearby, its belly rising and falling in a slow, peaceful rhythm. Look at her now. She's so beautiful. She looks like a real heroine. Actually, she's not a heroine of some silly romantic novel. She's just Dahlia. Yeah. She's just herself. I looked up at the glass ceiling. The floating comments were still there, but they were no longer white or red. They were a soft, translucent gold, so faint. They were almost invisible against the bright, blue sky outside. They were no longer judging me. They were just watching, peaceful and quiet. Like drifting dust motes in the sun. The bell above the shop door chimed softly. I turned around. Asher was standing by the entrance, his red hair slightly messy from the wind. Carrying a cardboard tray with 2 iced drinks, both of them the same fancy, expensive specialty berry lattes he knew I loved. He looked at me, his eyes softening, a warm, gentle smile spreading across his face. Hey, he said, stepping into the warm greenhouse. I brought your favorite. I smiled, setting my shears down on the table, and walked toward him, the hem of my pink dress brushing against the green leaves of the peach trees. Thanks, Asher, I said, taking the cold cup from his hand. We sat on the wooden bench together, watching the sun begin its slow, golden descent behind the rooftops of the old district. The sky was vast, open, and completely free of words. For the first time in my life, I didn't need a knight to protect me. I had found my own strength, my own dress, and my own name. And as Asher's hand gently slid into mine, our fingers locking together in the warm afternoon light, I knew that the story I was writing now was entirely my own.